Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wait maybe 3 or 4 more minutes. Commissioner Russell indicated that he's running a little bit late, so we're going to wait for him. We've got plenty of time, so we'll do that.
I love how King Griffin Splash Park looks. That's my favorite. I love it. The sports, that whole sports thing.
I just saw Commissioner Russell walk in. I just don't know where he went, so we'll give it another minute. Oh, he's coming. Yeah, he's here.
Must went to the restaurant.
Yeah, he did. I just didn't want to announce it. That's what they said.
He's in the bathroom. No. 4:30. We've been waiting on you.
Okay, at this time, it's a little loud, Ian. Thank you. At this time, we'd like to call to order the Lynn Haven Community Redevelopment Agency Board Meeting for September 25th at 4:30 p.m. There seemed to be a little confusion, so I think 2 or 3 people had the time wrong, so here we are. At this time, item number 2 would be the public commentary. If I have any members of the public or any of the city staff, anyone who would like to speak, we'll start with the public. Or have a question or a concern.
Janet Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. Can I additionally then speak under the budget item number 4?
Since you are the only one here and we don't seem to be pressed for time, you certainly may.
The only thing under public commentary is a question regarding the CRA Advisory Board. I know at the last meeting you approved the removal of one of the CRA Advisory Board members, and I believe Ms. Frances Witkoff was going to be approached as she was an alternate to see whether or not she would fill that empty spot. I'm curious as to find out whether or not Frances will be on board. That was my only public commentary.
Okay. Ben, would you like to address? Okay, and then I can as well if you need additional comments. Go ahead.
I'd be happy to. I reached out to Frances Witkoff and informed her that her application has been approved and that she's now officially on the advisory board. And during that conversation, I just let her know that at the next meeting, which will be sometime in early December, I will be sending the information to her for review and invite her, of course, to the advisory board meeting. And
Okay.
That's the current status right now.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from the public? Any comments or, well, that's just public commentary. Okay, moving on to item number 3 then, approval of the meeting minutes from September 12th, 2018. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion, corrections, or comments about the meeting minutes from last time? There appear to be none. Any comments from the public on the minutes? Okay, Mr. White, would you please call the roll for approval?
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, so the minutes stand approved for September 12th, 2018. The regular agenda for this evening only has one item. This is resolution number 2018-09-02, adopting a final community redevelopment agency budget for fiscal year 2018-2019. Mr. White, could you read the resolution, please?
Resolution number 2018-09-02. A resolution adopting a final budget for the Lynn Haven Community Redevelopment Agency for the fiscal year 2018-2019 and appropriating for the purposes specified redevelopment trust funds and amounts specified for disbursement according to said budget for the fiscal year 2018-2019.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve and adopt the final community redevelopment agency budget for 2018-2019?
So moved.
Yes.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion from the board or questions? There appear to be none. Any questions or discussion from the public? Yes, Mrs. Walker.
Janet Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. On page 1 of the budget, it's the page right behind that signature page. Halfway down, it says training, certification, and functions, and it looks like there's the amount of $5,000 has been plugged in for this upcoming budget year. I don't remember in the past ever seeing such a high figure for that specific item. Can you tell me exactly what type of training, certification, and/or functions might equal $5,000?
I'll let Ben address.
I can do it.
Okay, Michael's going to do it.
Yes, ma'am. With the employee policy manual, we allow employees to go back to school. And Ben is going to go back to school, getting his master's in business administration, so we had to allocate some funds to help go over there. So that's where some of the funds are going.
Is this something new in the employee handbook?
Yes, ma'am. It was approved when the new handbook.
Okay, so he's going back for his master's.
Yes.
Okay, here's where I have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with him going for his master's. I think that's wonderful. But what I have a problem with is $5,000 from the CRA fund assisting him with that. I don't believe anyone except Commissioner Barnes was on the commission when the CRA was formed back in '03. But my husband and I were and received the packet, went through that packet page by page, sat in one of these rooms here and listened to the consultant as far as how the CRA would benefit the CRA area. I happen to live in the CRA. I think maybe Commissioner Tinder lives in the CRA and the mayor lives in the CRA. Those are funds. I realize they're not extra funds coming from me personally or any of the CRA residents, but they're funds allocated to spiff up or help cover the blight, which was one word that they used in the original CRA packet, in the CRA area. So I take offense at taking $5,000 and giving it to Ben. He's bettering himself, I agree, but he may better himself and find a better job somewhere else and take that $5,000 that came out of the, well, you're shaking your head no, but
the employees have to sign a contract with the city that they're going to work another 5 more years.
How many more?
5.
5 more years.
So if they leave, that they'll have to pay a prorated share of that back. Being an employee of the CRA, mainly 80%, CRA, he falls under CA category of salaries. So that's why it was put in the CRA area.
Okay, and that's fine for that explanation, but I still take offense of using $5,000 of the total TIFT funds for that particular purpose. I think it should be used for the original purposes that was stated in that 2003 consultant's formula for the city of Lynn Haven. Yep.
I think that you have raised an interesting point, and if you don't mind, Mr. White, I'd kind of like to sort of defer to City Attorney.
I agree.
Would there be, I mean, I realize, I do understand what Mr. White is doing throughout the budget. He's trying to tie employees to the fund from which they're paid and you know, trying to keep things allocated so that we can see where money's coming from. But do you see any issues with this particular fund, because it is a little different than some of the others? If maybe this would be an issue, maybe the educational funds for Mr. Jonke need to come out of another place. Do you have an issue with that? I mean, I think you know, she's raised a concern that I really didn't think of.
Oh, I appreciate your understanding
so I
the
think
point I'm
that-
trying to make. I appreciate that.
So
Yeah, and I concur, Mayor.
Okay.
I think it's a valid question. I was going to ask the same one.
okay.
I just need to confirm, is Ben an employee of the CRA?
80% of the CRA.
80% is
of his
funded by the
salary gets
CRA?
paid. The way I put it in there, attorney, was the way I look at it is Ben's 80% there, so he, you know, a percentage of that needs to go there. However, considering the money, the tax dollars from the CRA stays in the CRA, and the city, the general fund, does not get any of those funds to help with police, fire, anywhere else. You know, it's kind of like something that stands on its own to a certain extent.
Yeah, I mean, generally, the CRA funds can be used for operational or administrative expenses of the CRA. And so if Mr. Yankee is an employee of the CRA, I think the proportion of the money that he's an employee of could be used for the CRA. So, I mean, 80%, I think, I don't know if that's what it is, but, and the rest reimbursed from the city, I suppose.
Yeah.
As far as an employee in a contract, that's relatively common that for, people who are getting advanced education, they sign a contract that they agree to stay with the city. If they don't, then they can have to reimburse the city for the money that they paid.
And so just to rephrase my question again, because it certainly is not against Ben pursuing this degree, I'm just wondering if we're taking the money from the right fund. So his educational funds would be considered an administrative part of this budget because of the fact he is an administrator working for the CRA?
If the duties, if the education is required or helpful to him
Okay.
Managing the CRA, then yes, I think it would be considered part of the administrative funds to run the
Okay.
CRA.
All right.
My question on top of that is, his getting his master's going to help how in the CRA?
Well, I think that educational, anytime that you do something to
Most
to
definitely
improve.
agree, yes. But I don't think, to me, it doesn't seem how it's going to help him.
Mayor, I have a question.
Sure, Commissioner Barnes.
Ben, you said you're getting your MBA, is that correct? Okay, I can see the relevancy of an MBA being used in this particular position because of the business background that it will create and the business knowledge that it would take to help run this specific project, the CRA. It's just like a business. And so the classes that he takes can very well be applicable to everything that he does for the CRA. So I support this. And I totally agree with the city attorney that if part of his job is to work with the CRA and the education that he is getting ties back to his position and the CRA, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I have argued on this commission and the CRA as well, is that we need to make sure that we get qualified people to do the job that they're hired to do and not just put a warm body into a position just to occupy that position. So if he is going back to better himself and he is using the knowledge that he is learning to help the CRA and as well help the city of Lynn Haven, by all means, I think we would not be good stewards in investing in the people that's out in the trenches doing the job every single day. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Barnes. Commissioner Friend, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. So my main question was just for the attorney to make sure that the funds were legally, being used, and his answer is affirmative. And I do understand Mr. White's position in that everything that he's doing with this budget, which I do like the way that it's very easy now to look at the budget and with numbers with employees attached to the fund from which they're paid. And so I think that's a good plan. I still understand your point, but at the same time, I don't really have an issue with it since the attorney said it was a legal thing. If it was questionable or a gray area, then I would have a...
So that I would, I know it, no, that.
It's okay, go ahead.
And then I realized that in the future, when we have a contract like we did this past year for $60,000 that went out to a separate firm that had to do with the CRA over at the fuel depot, in the future, we won't be having to spend $60,000 at an outside firm. We will have Ben on site to save us that $60,000. So that's what I'm hoping for. If we're going to be spending that $5,000 to help him better himself as far as his education, I'm looking for future consulting that he doesn't have to pay for.
Yes, go ahead.
I think you have to look at the classes that he takes that will comprise the MBAs so that knowledge that he uses or he ascertains in that program could be tied back or can be used in this particular project. If he's taking MBA classes, he's going to be taking a lot of classes, statistics, introduction to business, a whole lot of classes that he can use to tie back to this to benefit the CRA as well as the city as well. So even if Mr. White doesn't need him in the CRA position, with an MBA, he's still going to be valuable to this city and use that business knowledge as well.
Thank you for the question, Ms. Walker. Did you have anything else?
I would just like to say, I'm hoping somebody on the commission reads his report card to see if he's using our funds appropriately in class and he's learning something.
Anybody else?
One
have a
more
comment?
question.
Yes, Mr. Barnes.
Ben, how
Commissioner
long-
Barnes.
Ben, how long will it take you to obtain this degree?
2.5 to 3 years.
Okay, so you're not
Because it's an
going
online class in the evening.
to FSU?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you're not going to see an ROI until you pretty much almost graduate from it.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions about the budget before we move forward? Mr. Walker, please.
Yeah, Rich Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. Continue on this subject. It's interesting to watch how this is being worked. He signed, this is not directed at him. This is
Him
directed at-
being Mr. Jenkins.
This is directed at the office.
Okay, go ahead.
As the office, okay. The position is, he is a CRA employee,
Okay.
period. Whether he signed an employee document and your document there is irrelevant. It's irrelevant.
Irrelevant to what? I don't
It's
understand what you're saying.
irrelevant because he's a CRA employee. He's not a City of Lynn Haven employee. The IRS declared that in his tax return, in that office tax returns, he declared that. That has been known. The mayor of this town stated that the CRA director was being removed.
This mayor or a past mayor?
The mayor of the town at the time
Okay.
said that he was not a CRA employee, not a city employee. He was a CRA employee solely. He then went in employment to the Main Street program. IRS documents prove that. Okay, therefore, we have a difference of opinion here. Fine, we've allowed this to go on for a long time. What we understand here is now the city employees are getting 95% of their medical bills paid, medical premiums paid by this city. That's a bonus. Now you're adding $5,000 in education to all the employees. He's not an employee of the city.
I would take issue with that, but you're
Yeah,
welcome to that
right.
opinion.
Okay, I understand that. And that, we've put up that for years. Where are we going to stop here? The CRA is paying for his medical premiums, his salary, everything involved in it, and even inclusive of a car now, which we just noticed. So I don't understand why we are, I fully understand an MBA program. I just went through it, had an individual do it, okay? He was relocated to a state, put into a college, got his master's degree, came back. They paid for everything. That's normal. His courses were directed at what he would be doing for the United States government for the next 10 years. Our summary went out, when we went out with the employment for the CRA person, came to us with his degree already in city planning. That's education right there. Granted, if he goes for his master's degree, that's fine. I agree with Mr. Barnes. Anytime anybody can go for it, that's fine. Anytime anybody can go for it and have somebody else pay for it is even better. So I just don't understand this, because if you back up, the CRA director was paid to go, not paid, but he was allowed to join the Rotary Club, and we paid for that. So I think we've got to take a look at this budget and be a good tutor of it. It's a good idea. However, we've got a lot of bonuses going into that office. Actually, 1/3 of our income for the CRA goes to that office.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the public? Any from the board? Mr. White, we had a motion and a second for approval of the budget. Would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. And so the CRA budget has been approved, and at this time, the meeting is adjourned with the commission meeting starting at 6 o'clock. Thank you.